I'm happy to be here talking to you today. Thank you, Mbariano, for creating this platform. You know that this is something that is dear to my heart, so I like to talk about this. I can see all the people who are logged on. We're going to be talking about a topic that I'm sure you guys are almost tired of hearing, which is the future of work. I think it's been overused. I think the phrase "the future of work" has been overused, but unfortunately, there's hardly another way of saying what we're trying to say. But I'm going to approach it from a slightly different perspective today. I'd like to talk about the role of the human being and what it means to be human in this so-called future of work. The topic says a transforming humanity. It means two things to me. It means that humanity is undergoing a transformation, and at the same time, humanity is transforming the world as we know it. So it's like it has like two meanings right now to me. So we're talking about what it means to be human and what the role of the human being in this world that we live in today as it relates to work. Julia already spoke about me, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that. I run an organization called Chrysalis Consulting in Boston, Massachusetts. I've done a lot of work in Nigeria that revolves around organizational transformations. That is where I really, really play a role. And as you all know, most organizations are moving from what they used to be to something new today. Either you're setting up an organization, a digitally savvy organization, or you're transforming your already existing organization to become digitally savvy. So that's where most organizations are figuring out how to survive and how to make progress in this current space as we know it today. So what don't you know about me? You don't know that I am a painter. I like to paint in watercolors and also acrylics. I'm a bit of a poet. I'm actually slightly published. I was published in some anthology somewhere. My other interests include traveling, fitness, reading. Easy to find me videos of me working out on social media because I like that. What else? I like to cook sometimes, but not all the time. So delving right into it, it's no secret. Everyone's talking about the future of work. Yet, people have a lot of questions. People want to know, what does this really mean? How does it affect me? Does it have any implications for my future, for my immediate and distant future? Are there things I need to know? Is my job in danger? Do I have the right skills to survive in this future? What's actually going on? And a lot of people are not at the level in organizations where they can see the whole picture, where they understand what strategic changes their organizations are making. And I dare say that a lot of Nigerian organizations are still not as transparent as they could be regarding their strategy for playing in this new digital world. So a lot of people are blindsided by the changes that are being made, even though organizations are transforming. You just hear about something that has happened, and maybe it affects you or your job, and you just find out. So there are layoffs happening. People don't know why. So there's a lot of insecurity in the land. What if I told you the future of work was actually right now? In fact, it's been going on for a while, and it is actually human. The human being is at the center of this so-called future of work. The human being is pivotal to the success of this so-called future of work. So the place of the human being is not necessarily in contention, and I'm going to talk about that some more as I move on. The best way I could think of holding this workshop was to basically synthesize a lot of the questions I get asked on this subject because I do a lot of speaking and working around this subject. And there are some questions that keep arising every time I interact with this subject matter. Those questions, I've been able to kind of distill them into 7 distinct questions. And this whole workshop is basically going to be me asking questions and answering the questions myself. So the first question is the question, what is a typical workplace of the future? Well, what does it look like, right? What's going to happen in this workplace of the future? What typifies the workplace of the future? How do I recognize this so-called future workplace? I can explain this by, first of all, talking about the immediate pointers, which are things I like to call the 3 T's. The 3 T's are basically technology, talent, and transformations. So number 1 is that technology is driving what is happening. There's a lot of technology that is changing the way that we see things, the way that products are developed, the way that organizations connect with their consumers, the way that organizations think about problem solving, the way we engage. And as soon as technology begins to catalyze certain changes, and as soon as technology begins to cause organizations to rethink how work is done, then it starts to affect the kind of skills that organizations need in order to succeed. So if there's new technology changing processes, changing our value chain as we know it, then automatically means that we need to rethink how work is done. Therefore, meaning that we need to think about what kind of skills that we can use to achieve this. And of course, this affects the mix of individuals that you have. And what happens next is you then find out that organizations begin to transform. So organizations go through a formal transformation process where they rethink their strategy, where they rethink their products. Sometimes they rethink their whole DNA. We're talking about changing completely who we are and what our mission is. And when that happens, it changes entirely our mix of jobs and our mix of skills. So I call it the 3 T's because they all converge to create this hyper insecure environment that people are experiencing today. And I'm going to talk a little more about the characteristics of organizations like this. So what we are seeing is basically a digital transformation where organizations are keying into the tools that the benefits of digitization. I'm going to stop a little bit to explain the difference between digitization and automation. People tend to think they are the same thing. They are not. Digitization, automation is basically using technology to do things that you already do. So there are processes that exist and you're basically just automating them. You just take the steps, the tasks as they are already defined and get technology to perform those tasks for you. Namdi, I see you, how are you? And get technology to perform those tasks for you. But digitization is different. That's what brings about disruption. So digital transformation is basically when an organization or a set of people look at a problem and they don't think about whatever was in existence before then. We see a social problem and we decide to solve it. And we have technology that we can use to enable that solution. And we just deploy it. And in the process, we end up disrupting value chains. We end up disrupting other people's businesses. I'll give you a typical example. And most disruptive businesses cut across industries, right? So think about a very easy one is Airbnb or Uber, right? Airbnb cuts across hospitality, cuts across travel, cuts across tech, and it crowdsources its service. So you can't really say that this is what Airbnb, you can't box Airbnb in an industry, just as you can't box Uber in an industry. You can't say that Uber is transportation. Is it transportation? Is it tech? Now they're veering off into foods and all kinds of other areas. So this is the point to digitization. It's about building technology platforms that enable you to do so much more. So some of the key characteristics of this kind of organizations is that they're kind of exponential, meaning that they create a platform and then start to build on that platform. That's why Amazon can do anything. There's Amazon Music. In fact, recently Amazon has been harassing me to put my pictures up on Amazon Cloud. There's Amazon, there's of course what we know with Amazon buying and selling retail. We know Amazon Foods. Now they're working with Whole Foods. So they can do anything from there. All they did was just to create the platform to be able to launch and become exponential. So these kind of organizations grow very quickly. That's one of the things that typify organizations of today, of the so-called future of work. You also see a shorter capability lifespan. Usually when I do design for organizations and try to define their strategy, there's one step that is critical, and that step is the step where you kind of define what capabilities do you need to have in order to succeed. The difference between today and before is that in the past, we will build capabilities. It could be tech, it could be your supply chain, for example. In the past, we'll build supply chain capabilities and just go to sleep because that capability will run for the next 10 years, 20 years. Average lifespan of core capabilities used to be over 20-something years. That has shrunk so drastically that if you invest in building a capability, that capability will be done in the next 4 years or 3 years, depending on how the environment changes. And technology is catalyzing these changes. So you can't rest on your oars anymore. You have to kind of be an organization that's constantly reinventing itself, constantly rethinking its models, constantly rethinking the capabilities that is built. So this is the dilemma of organizations that in today's world. And I'm not saying the future because it's with us already. Another thing that you would notice is the shorter strategy span, which is linked to shorter capability span. Of course, what kind of technology is driving this? Ability to harness big data. So you build platforms with the sole intention of collecting as much data as you can so you can make sense of that data and build your exponential business on top of that data. Let me break it down. Let me make it very simple. There's an analogy that I like to use. I call it the zoo analogy. I'll tell you a little bit of the story. So there's a zookeeper, right? Or somebody decided to build a zoo and own a zoo. So he built this zoo and he put all kinds of exotic animals in the zoo, right? Lions, tigers, peacocks, whatever. And he put a price, a ticket price, and said, if you want to get in this zoo, you have to pay $200. Okay, you have to pay 50,000 naira, whatever. So people did not pay because they thought it was too expensive. So he reduced the price to 20,000 naira. Still, people did not pay. He reduced it to 10,000 naira. People did not pay until he said, you know what? It's free. Just get into the zoo. So the moment he made it free and threw the gates open, a lot of people came and got into the zoo. Immediately they got into the zoo. My brother shut the door. He closed the gates and released all the tigers and all the lions. So everybody ran to the gates. And the moment they ran to the gates, he said to them, oh, you want to get out? It's going to cost you 50,000 naira. And everybody quickly paid that 50,000 naira in order to get out. So that's what these kind of organizations kind of do. They trap you. So they tell you it's for free, and you come in and they build a fan base, and you build your whole life on those platforms, but you can't leave even if you're upset. And the moment they trap you, that's when they start making their money. So that's how it kind of works, is the paradigm of platforms. So they build a fan base. They use you to, let me not use the word use. They make you give them your information, which they then analyze and understand the consumer so well that they understand your touch points, and they can keep on building on those touch points on how to engage with you and how to trade with you and how to create more things that resonate with you. And they make it so difficult for you to leave. A lot of people today are obsessed with Facebook, but they can't leave because your whole life is on Facebook, right? That's where your friends are. That's where your business is. So you're so intertwined with Facebook that you can't just walk away without having a personal loss. So this is very characteristic of businesses of the future or businesses of today. I'm going to move on from here. I hope that kind of explains how these kind of businesses work. Now let's talk about what is creating these changes. I spoke about, when I was speaking with Nnamdi, I spoke about the industrial revolutions that we know and how they've happened. To me, there's nothing too fantastic happening, in quotes. What's awe-inspiring is what technology can do, right? Is our knowledge and the things we're seeing that we can do with technology, and how human creativity is going crazy with the availability of the technology that we have. But in terms of looking at it clinically, what is happening now is not something that has never happened before. We've had 3 clear industrial revolutions. If you study how work has evolved over time. We had the first industrial revolution, which was typified by mechanization. So we figured out how to create production lines, for example, and things that were easy. Just mechanize a process and just have some kind of machine doing what human beings were doing. So each time we move from one industrial revolution to the other, there's something that happens. Humanity needs to change the way it works, because some things that human beings used to do will then be robbed of them by technology. And when this happens, it creates an opportunity, and it also creates fear, because people that only had one skill begin to wonder what happens to them next. So that's what mechanization did. It took away some jobs. Second industrial revolution was when we saw the automobile. The first industrial revolution saw the steam engine, which was a big one. I remember all the stories about railroads being built and all that. And then the second one was about automobiles. That was when cars were invented. Ford was a big player in the second industrial revolution. Once that happened, it changed the way we saw travel. It changed the way we saw trade. It changed the way we saw connections, how quickly you can get from point A to point B. Radically changed supply chains, right? So it also changed the role that human beings play. It made time shorter for delivering goods from one place to the other. And it was very, very significant in how the world behaved afterwards. Same with the third industrial revolution. Of course, that was when we saw nuclear energy, and that was when we saw computers. Computers, most of us, well, except for the really, really young people, most of us can remember the advent of computers and what it looked. It was like magic. Wow, computers, And one thing that I can remember significantly, I was there for that one, right? One thing I can remember significantly was that back in the day, we used to have typing pools full of people. You come to a room and you see 100 people, typists with typewriter in a room, and their job was to type and churn out documents, right? In fact, there was something that they used to teach us back then when we were in junior high school, and they used to teach us how to do shorthand, and I think it was shorthand. Somebody would dictate and you figure out how to write it very quickly. That quickly faded. I didn't do that for too long. But those were skills that you needed to learn then in order to communicate and in order to have a place in the workforce. Those skills faded as soon as the computer emerged, especially the advent of the personal computer, because it changed the way we saw communication. It totally redefined the speed at which work was done. It redefined how we could save documents. It redefined how we thought about work and what humans could do versus what computers could do. All those typing pools dissolved. People needed to start to learn new skills, right? People needed, so it's always like each time this happens, humanity has to move a step up, so to speak, in the kind of things that humans now do versus what they used to do. So once again, we are at an industrial revolution, this time characterized by digitization, this time characterized by the internet. The only thing I can say that one thing though is that this is still a big debate. Apparently, some people are still debating: is this an industrial revolution, or is it an extension of the third industrial revolution? I totally think it's a new industry. It's the fourth industrial revolution because it has all the characteristics of an industrial revolution. It is changing the way we view work, the way we see communication, the way we view engagement with our products. Organizations are no longer creating products, they are creating customers. So if you create customers, you can then sell them anything, which is really what they're now doing. So it changes everything. And when it changes it, what it then means is that now it's an opportunity again for humanity to step up one more time. We are in the fourth industrial revolution. So we can't tell you impact of the fourth industrial revolution yet because we are still undergoing it. Unlike all the industrial revolution, we can tell you the magnitude of the impact of automobiles. We can measure the magnitude of the impact of computers, but we can't measure the magnitude of the fourth industrial revolution because it's still ongoing. We're still in it. So that's why there's an element of fear. We are living in very exciting, interesting times when humanity is turning a corner. And I'm happy that I'm part of this generation, to be honest with you. This is the kind of thing that excites me. I wouldn't have wanted to live at the time when there was nothing happening in the world. So I'm just laying on the background so we kind of have a sense of what's really happening and lose the fear and feel a bit more connected to what's going on. What we are seeing is a lot of smart technology focused on solutions, connections, innovation, platforms, like all these things that I was talking about. If you don't take out anything, just remember that I said organizations aren't building products; they are building customers. So you build customers and you sell them whatever. Having said all this, will human beings become contingent labor? Will they become supplementary labor? There is a short answer and there is a long answer. The short answer is no. Human beings are not ever going to be supplementary labor. The place of the human will always be secure because there's someone, I think it's Mari Numaya, who always says that the last known competence to man will be creativity. And creativity lives here, lives in your head, it lives in us, it lives in the human being. The computer is not going to be creative ever. Technology is not going to be creative on its own. Human beings have to do the thinking, have to identify the problem, and then use technology to solve that problem. That is a role that human beings will always play. Human beings will always play the role of the emotional connection role, right? Human beings are there to emote, not technology. Even if you have a robot that tells you every morning how great thou art, it's still not a human being. You still won't really believe that. So it's clear that the place of the human will always be there. However, things are changing and humanity needs to change with it in a certain way, which is why we are a transforming humanity. There are certain things that 10 years, 5 years from now, people will not remember how to do because they've not had to use that skill ever. For example, if you give a 10-year-old today, those rotary phones that we used to have back in the 80s and I think early 90s, they wouldn't know what to do with it. They wouldn't know how it works. Just like that. There are things that people wouldn't know how to do anymore. There are roles that human beings wouldn't know how to play anymore. However, there is a link between work, the workplace, and the workforce. And that's the conversation we're having. The link being that when work changes, the workplace changes. When the workplace changes, the workforce changes. Now, as the who is then responsible for how the workforce engages with the changes in the workplace? Will there be people that will be fired? Yes. Are there jobs that will become redundant? Yes. In fact, there's a prediction that about 57% of all the jobs globally are at risk of being automated. So what this simply means is that we can automate, we can turn this job, we can give computer this work to do, we can give a robot. Amazon doesn't have people who are shelvers anymore in their warehouses. All the operations in their warehouses are conducted by robots at this point. So they started doing this since, I think, 2016 or so. And now they've gone full automated mode. So jobs have changed. What does this mean? It means that new skills have to be learned. It means that people have to play a different role. But it is somebody's responsibility to ensure that this happens. And it's kind of a three-pronged responsibility. I will talk about this in a while. But one thing that is important to say here is that the rate at which changes are happening today, or in this so-called workplace of the future, means that the rate at which we need to learn these new skills has become even shorter. Like we have a shorter space and a shorter time to learn these new skills. So like I said, the short answer is no. And the long answer is no, but you need to reskill. No, but you need to quickly learn how to change. No, but careers are changing. So what a career path looked like 10 years ago isn't what it looks like today. Now, multidimensionalism is more important than being one-dimensional. By this, I mean that, back in the days, what we used to do was just to look at your technical skills and match it to a job and say, okay, you can do this job and this is what it takes to succeed on this job. Now, problems that come with the kind of environment that we operate in don't require you to just be technically strong. There are all kinds of attendant skills that you need to have, such as being creative, such as the ability to spot problems and solve them, such as digital savviness, such as critical thinking. These things are the things that will make separate success from being unsuccessful. So all of a sudden, we are checking how quickly you can relearn and unlearn new skills. All of a sudden, we're no longer just looking at your CV, we're going to look at your Facebook page. We're going to look at your Instagram page, because there are certain things that can sink us overnight, just because people have more access to us, and what we are saying. And I'm sure you guys, this one will resonate. You say something on social media and it affects your whole organization. So now we're looking really hard at who you really are as a whole person, and not just as somebody that does a specific job. We're also looking to see if we can migrate you from one job family to the other, and how quickly we can do that without having to fire you and bring in someone else, for example. So this has changed the way we see careers. Careers are now built on learning, as opposed to the specificity of skills that you used to have in the past. So now we're looking at how quickly can you learn. Now we're looking at, as you become part of our organization, how do we ensure that you're picking up multidimensional skills as you go along? How can we measure that? How can we reward it? How do you reward innovation? How do you build an environment where people can always bring ideas, because ideas are the foundation for innovation? So we're not necessarily looking at just expertise and competence anymore. We're looking at how quickly you can switch expertise from one to the other. And technology makes it easy for you to pick up new skills, because you can quickly learn. You can follow the prompts on your computer screen, for example, to do something different from what you used to do. Nigeria is peculiar though, but I'm going to talk about the Nigerian government. But I think we are peculiar in certain ways, in the terms of culture, the way our culture works when it comes to ideation and being able to share ideas at work, and for your ideas to be immediately accepted. I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions with that. But it's the organization's responsibility to build an environment where this can happen without fear. And there are ways that the organization can do that, and we'll talk about that in a bit. One thing I also want to say is that as we talk about learning, I always tell people, like, there are three entities that are responsible for your growth and your development. If you are an employee, one entity is your organization. Your organization is responsible for your growth and your development. The other entity is your manager. Your manager works with you every day, and they are responsible for your growth and your development. The third entity is you. And who has the most responsibility? It is you. So in a world such as this, there is a huge burden on the individual to upskill themselves, to relearn. When an organization is developing you, they are developing you for a purpose. They're developing you for the job that you do, or for the role that they want you to play within the organization. They're not developing you for your whole life. Although in the future of work, real life intersects with work life. There's really, the boundaries are blurry right now. So, but then it is still your responsibility to figure out what's going on in your environment and how to quickly grow. And maybe ask your organization for the kind of development that you need. Let's talk about the organization now. What should the organization be doing? For me, there's a big difference between being digital and doing digital. I remember walking into a lot of organizations back in 2013, 2014, and everybody was talking about digitization and how they wanted to create a digital department or a digital, in fact, some people created digital companies, but they had no idea what they were talking about, because digitization is not something you do. It is something you become. So they were all building these organizations that, because just like personal computers, it's something that anybody can do from anywhere. I can use digital tools to achieve whatever aim. I'll give you a typical example. Advertising agencies building digital advertising companies. Those companies have crashed in the past 2 years or so. And I predicted that they will, because they were meaningless. Anybody can go online and place digital ads. You know where to go. You go on Facebook, use their programmatic feature and place your own ads. You go on Instagram. So that's not a job. That's not a competence. It's just a tool that you use. So building your whole business around a tool that anybody has access to is setting yourself up for failure, because that's not the real job. The real job is the objective. What is it supposed to achieve? So if I were going to train people, or if I were going to digitize how I do advertising, I would do better to teach people how to think of using digital technology to achieve solutions to problems, rather than how to just use digital technology, because that's not the objective. That's just the tool. So a lot of people made this mistake, invested so much in teaching people how to use a computer. Meanwhile, everybody can just learn that in their bedroom. So being digital is different from doing digital. Being digital is then relooking your processes, your systems, your value chain, everything, and looking at the places where you can use digital technology for efficiency, use digital technology for problem solving, how to upskill your people in the use of digital technology for problem solving and innovation. That's what being digital means. When you're doing this, you are doing it agnostically from existing processes. So you know that this is your mission, you know that this is what you're trying to achieve, but it is agnostic of existing processes, because if you deploy one digital technology, it can negate the need for all your processes, maybe for 3 of your massive processes, just because you digitize and you solve the problem. So you don't need all these long processes anymore. And there are so many examples of that. Another thing that digitization does is that it places the power in the hand of the end user. You become responsible for how you interact with the business. So, for example, not many people use travel agencies anymore, because everything is online. You can just go online. And in fact, even airlines have turned into travel agencies themselves. They not only show you what their rates are, they have partnerships with hotels, They have partnerships with tourist organizations. So you can do all that yourself. You don't really need, and you do it in a matter of moments. You don't need anybody to be the middleman anymore. The role of the middleman is completely redundant these days. So what should organizations be doing? They should be thinking big, but acting simple. What I mean by acting simple is keep it simple. Think about engaging with the consumer, with the individual. What kind of platforms are you creating? How are you thinking about your people? Are you personalizing solutions for both your people and the people that you're selling to, or the people that you're trying to create an engagement with? People are people. People that come to work are also the same people that are buying things out there. So it's the same factors that are affecting all of us. You want to create unified platforms where you can say a lot to a lot of people directly without going through anybody. You want to create a fan club. That's why followers, like most organizations are counting how many followers they have on social media, because you want to create fanaticism. That's what you want to do right now. There's no single path though. Every organization has its own DNA. The most important thing is that organizations should be constantly transforming, and they must create an environment that enables them to do that. Organizations also need to totally rethink what reward is. Reward is becoming more and more, it's becoming more and more for your reward system to resonate with the individual, to resonate with me emotionally. It's not just about throwing money at me. It starts to become, what exactly how are you making my life better? Why should I feel loyal, or why should I feel like you actually care about me? So what you do with the limited resources you have in terms of rewards will determine how people migrate from where they are to where you want them to be, in terms of the kind of environment you're trying to build. So human beings are very logical. They will do what benefits them. So if you reward certain things, it will make me behave in a certain way. If I have consequences for bad consequences for certain behavior, I'm not likely to do those things. So you have to think clearly about what you're doing with reward. I'll give you some examples. There was this email that was flying around. I can't remember what organization it was, and it was an organization's response to COVID-19, and the people it was going to let go. I don't know if anybody remembers that email. I can't remember it was. One of these tech organizations. I can't remember which one. But the kind of benefits they put in place, they let them go away with their shares. They paid them some salary for certain years or something like that. So they made it very comfortable. And this email, the tone of the email, the way it sounded, how they made it almost comfortable for you to be let go of, was something that it went viral. And everybody, I can't remember what organization it was anymore, but I'm sure a lot of you saw that email. That's how it works with reward now, because it has to be an emotional engagement with the person that works in your organization. And finally, get out of the way and stop replicating yourself. It is important to ensure that there's a lot of diversity, because that's where innovation happens. When people with unlikely ideas come together to create something new. If we were all the same, we'll keep on doing the same thing. That's why we're all different, so that we can have unlikely ideas that kind of clash together and have the technological basis to be able to bring those ideas to life. You can ask me questions after, and we can talk about this. Number 5, what is the role of the Nigerian government? I like to talk about this because it doesn't matter how hard we strive. I am very passionate about Nigeria as a country. I'm passionate about the potentials that we have. I'm passionate about the transformation of Nigeria. I do believe that the private sector has a huge role to play in the transformation of Nigeria. I think that we as a people don't understand the power that we have, that we can put enormous pressure on our leaders and the policies they are making and the decisions that we make when we pick these people to lead us. I think we don't have enough awareness of what kind of power that we have. because we do have a lot of power. There's a lot of us, but we're not wielding that power at all. So what is the role of this government? Their role is simple: to enable digitization, enable the transformation of work, enable the transformation of service, enable the transformation of what we call of business. How can they do that? Because each time they enable businesses and enable human beings, their work becomes easier. They can do that by simply enabling the infrastructure that help us get there. Enable things like our ability to connect to the internet, enable access to Wi-Fi and technologies that help us, enable attendant technologies such as electricity. That's the role of the government. Also, regulation, not regulate us to death, but regulate for the purpose of enabling innovation, and not to stifle it and stop it and all that, like what they did to, I don't want to be controversial, but what they did to Go-Kada and Co. It was just a case of stifling innovation, no conversations, just stop it. So it is important that complementary infrastructure is developed so that we are not thinking, when you're hungry and all you're thinking about is whether you have light or whether you have money, whether you have fuel in your generator, you cannot innovate. It's not possible. You can't think beyond where you are. So this is a critical thing that we should demand of our, because the whole world is leaving us behind as we speak. A lot of countries are investing heavily in research and development around digitization. Even Rwanda, Ethiopia, if you go and check the list of countries that invest the most in digitization, you will see Ethiopia in the first 50. I didn't see Nigeria on that list at all. I don't know whether we made the list. So it's critical that we as a people begin to demand what we want and begin to think differently about the people that we choose to lead us. I'm not going to dwell too much on this because it's not really our call, but it is our call in the kind of decisions we make. Each time it's time for government to change hands. What skills do you need? I would say to you, the biggest skill that you can have now is the ability to learn quickly. Learn, unlearn, relearn, ultra learn, upskill, whatever you want to call it. But that knowing how to learn is the biggest skill you can have now. Knowing how to pick up new skills, not underestimating your ability as a human being. Problem solving is another big one. Creativity, the ability to think critically about problems, connect the dots and solve one problem and be able to see the problem in order to solve it is critical. So those things that people used to call soft skills have become center stage because the real technical work can change any day. Somebody can bring technology that changes what you think is your technical expertise, and you find yourself not being able to move. So your foundation should be the ability to learn, the ability to unlearn, the ability to upskill, soak up new learning as if you were a sponge. Go outside of the more multidimensional you are, the more likely you are to survive in the future of work. The less likely you are to be swept out of the organization or out of your space. So this is critical. And by multidimensionalism, I mean, don't be a one-track person. Be everything you can be. These days, when you see people's bios, they don't just say to you, I am an HR person, I'm an accountant. They say, I'm an accountant, I am a painter, I am a singer, I am a dancer, I'm also a trader. They bring all these skills. And when you look at those skills, you can begin to see how they complement who this whole person should be and how all those skills will play in the kind of role they play within your organization. And as organizations evolve, they're going to begin to codify these things a little more succinctly. So they'll be able to tell you that a surgeon that can play the piano might be better than a surgeon that cannot play the piano. I'm just using that as an example. So these things are going to become more codified, and it will become something that people are looking for, more multidimensionalism that enables you to do your primary job even better. So I think that this is where I'm going to stop. and all the questions can happen at this point. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take your questions. So over to you, Julia.
And Adora, thank you so much. So I'll be taking the questions now. We have some questions already in the chat. I'll start first. Okay. First one says, can digitization be separated from knowledge-based, knowledge-driven economic revolution?
Okay, I like that.
Okay, so I think when you respond to that, I'll take the next one. Or do you want me to?
I find that interesting. Whose question was that?
Was Chuma.
Chuma, listen. When people talk about knowledge-based, knowledge-driven, I'll tell you what. Knowledge was a long time ago. We moved from information to knowledge, and then we moved from knowledge to innovation. So when it was information, it was about collating information. You know, those were the days when Google first started. Their immediate aim was to have a place where we dumped all the information of the world. I can tell you for free that Google had no idea where Google would go at that point in time, right? They didn't know that Google would become what it has become today. All they were trying to do was to create a receptacle for all the information of the world. So we went from one thing. So at the same time, organizations were busy creating knowledge exchange platforms. Then they were called knowledge repositories, where you come and dump information. So they put all their process manuals there. They put all kinds of things there. So if you want to find out how to do something, you just go on the knowledge. That was the height of technology then. It started in the US military. So they would do all that. So as information started coming together, people found that it became cumbersome. How do I find the actual information I'm looking for? Because there was now information overload, because we gathered all this information. So it started becoming important for us to make sense of that information. That is when data analytics started, the budding days of analytics. So we started, where we started from, when we moved from information to knowledge, what we did next was to bring the most important information to the fore. We hadn't delved deeply into big data analytics. The game changer was big data analytics. So what the knowledge age and the knowledge-based economy was really about was moving the important information to the fore so that it's easy for you to find, right? Now, after that, we have now moved from there to using knowledge for problem solving. So now it's about innovation. It's not just about knowing anymore. I don't care what you know. Everybody knows everything today. Once you talk to anybody, they'll tell you that they know. But they don't know anything because they can't think. So the difference now is this thing that you know, what does it mean? What can it do? Right? And you should, that is where the cocoa lies. What you're doing with what you know. So knowledge is not enough anymore. We have moved way past that. We are now talking artificial intelligence, which is like you knowing. We're now talking about you being able to use that information you know to answer complex world questions. That's what we're talking about now. And that's why everybody's doing AI, big data, looking at algorithms that can cross different data sets to making sense of them.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that because the buzzword around town is, we are now in a knowledge-based economy.
That's past knowledge, we know. Everybody knows.
I wanted to bring that out for the benefit of this session. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we take the second one. It's from Ugochi, and she has two questions. What are some of the skill sets that will lose value with the new industrial revolution? What new skills? Yes, from Ugochi. What new skills will be of value in this new age? Then will the AI?
Okay, sorry.
Okay, will AI affect human creativity?
AI
so what skill sets will lose value?
Sorry?
What skill sets will lose value with the industrial revolution?
Okay.
What new skills will be of value in the new age? Then will AI affect human creativity?
I'm not sure I can tell you all the skill sets that will lose value, but I can tell you the kind of skill set that will lose value first. And that skill set is very straightforward. Anything that is repetitive, does not require a lot of brain, does not require you to think, is basically process-based, meaning there's step one. All the tasks, are in a process line that you can define. There's step one, there's step two, there's step three. Anything like that is in danger of being taken away by technology. Because once I can easily automate it, and the easiest thing to automate is anything that has a defined step-by-step process to it. And if it is repetitive, even better, I don't have to think too hard about it. That is why there's a whole conversation around the work that surgeons do. If I'm able to map the human anatomy very carefully and precisely, will robotics take over the job that maybe, like I want to do an appendicectomy? Can robotics take over an appendicectomy, for example? What is the role of the human being? Now, doctors are saying that that's not even possible. Yeah, that's still a way off, because one person's body is different from the other person's body. But if I find that they are identical patterns, once there's a pattern, it can be automated. So that is the short answer to this question of what kind of skills. If you notice that your job has a pattern, and there's one answer I can deploy to a mass of, for example, let's look at customer service, for instance. If you always get the question, if you always get certain questions, how do I turn off my computer, for example? How do I turn off this phone? Just automate the answer. You don't need a human being to answer that, because 1 million people are going to ask you that question. So at the end of the day, you don't need anybody, because once you have an FAQ list, I'm keeping this thing very basic. You have an FAQ list, you just do automated answers to all that. Anybody that asks that question will get the automated answer. That is what Siri does. That's the job that Siri does. Look at the job of a map. How it's been taken over by Google Maps, telling you where to go. So once there's a pattern, I can automate it. So if your job doesn't involve creation, if your job doesn't involve a lot of thinking, and if your job is not diverse situations, diverse, complex, and multidimensional situations that cannot be predicted, as long as it can be predicted and there's a predictable pattern, it is in danger of being automated.
Thank you. And the next from Deji. How do we bring people in the rural areas into the digital transformation wave, knowing that many people living in such areas lack access to technological infrastructure and tools such as smartphones? So how do we bring Deji?
Okay, I like this question. It is a question that I also have, but this question is definitely a question that needs to be answered by our collective responsibility, which is us as Nigerians. Our government has a big role. So when I was talking about, because we can't do everything as individuals, when I was talking about the role that the government has to play, that's exactly what I was talking about. The government has a responsibility to create accessibility to these infrastructure for their own sake, not just for our own sake. Because if they don't do it, we will be left behind as a people. And this is not just about Nigeria, it's about a lot of African countries. Even enabling trade and convergence between one African country and the other. These are serious issues that our governments, African governments, need to be looking at. Private sector could help in small doses, CSR, carry out all kinds of things, create enabled infrastructure. But at the end of the day, it needs to be much more systematic than that. Policies need to be created to understand how many people, what population are at the risk of being wiped out of civilization, so to speak. And how do we get them within that system? And it's not that difficult, Mobile technology is not that. You don't need education to be able to use a phone, So it's just about rethinking what digitization means and bringing people up to speed and making sure they have access to the infrastructure. The beginning of it is very simple. Make sure that wherever you go in Nigeria, you can connect to Wi-Fi, for instance. That's the beginning. Then from there, people will figure out what to do with that Wi-Fi. I'll tell you guys something. There's a platform I was creating, and it was meant for people in the open market who are normally seen as unskilled and unschooled, right? And my first interaction with them, I was surprised at how much they knew about using digital platforms, because they've been using things like Gigi, Conga, They might not know what it's called, but they know exactly how to use it to make money. They are very savvy. So it's just about put the tools in people's hands, and human creativity will do the rest.
Okay, thank you. And the last question will come from me. There's this saying, jack of all trade and master of none. So with this new digitization going on and we trying to learn new skills, relearn, uplearn and all that, people are trying to do so many things. How does that come to play, in the light of the generalist concept that is being advocated for as against specialized skills?
I'm not sure that you can be everything, right? You really can't be everything. A human being cannot be everything. So you have to figure out, first of all, who you want to be as a person, and what you want to do with your life and where you want to play. So, but what I'm saying is, so you have, it's just like just like organizations. So Google says that, I can't remember what Google's mission statement is, something about organizing the world's information. Facebook talks about connecting people. So this is at the core of what they do. But they are connecting people. They are connecting. Do you know that Facebook now has a dating app? Does anyone know that? Facebook actually has a dating app these days. So, but they're connecting people, for several reasons in different dimensions. So they're connecting you with your friends, they're connecting you with your future husband or wife or boyfriend or whatever. They're connecting you, their Facebook marketplace. They're connecting you to sell. So all these require a little veering off. But if you look at the foundation is still the same. They are connecting people. That's what they're doing. So just like that is the same for us as individuals. What is your core? What is your foundation? And where do all the things that you know, how do they connect to the core of who you are? The things you're learning, the things you want to be, the kind of podcasts you listen to, the kind of shows you watch on TV, how you see entertainment, how does it connect with the core of who you are? If you can't go too far away from your core, so to speak, but you need to define your core to yourself to begin with. And there will always be opportunities if you're clear on what your core is.
Okay. Thank you so much. There's some other questions coming in on WhatsApp. So as we know, the government isn't helping matters. How can we as citizens create this access and culture of innovation within our own capacity?
I admire your ambition, and I admire your hunger to do something. I think that we can do things in our small
Communities.
In our small communities and small spaces, but we have a bigger responsibility, which is to understand the power of ourselves as a people and begin to change the way we think about leadership. So there's a lot of power in your hands. Use it right. Vote right. Get involved. Don't think that politics is what's causing the problem that we have today. So it's not for other people. All of us are involved in it. It affects us every day. So right now, the best thing I can tell you is, yes, you can do the things you can do in your small communities, but it's just like a drop in an ocean. You don't have enough power by yourself to change policy making or to change the existing policies. But what we can do is take seriously how we bring who we bring to power because all your efforts can go to nothing as an individual if you don't elect people right. So that's number one. Number two is that the private sector has a big role to play because the private sector, you employ 17,000 people, 2,000 people, 10,000, whatever numbers you employ. Those people are part of the environment that you operate in. So how you treat them, what you tell them, the kind of culture that you're building begins to influence how they see themselves as individuals and begin to influence what they allow their leaders to do to them. So the private sector has a voice. It was the private sector that changed how we communicated in Nigeria. I don't know if any of you were aware at the time we did not have mobile phones in Nigeria. Who changed it? Was it not the private sector? Regulation needed to catch up. So private sector can innovate so much that the government cannot ignore that innovation. So that's a job that the private sector has to do. And then fight with the government about regulation. Oh yeah, let's now fight. What can we now do? So the private sector has a big role to play. We as individuals in the private sector have a big role to play. You know, how we do our work on a day, our jobs on a day-to-day basis is important. But at the end of the day, the ultimate is who we put in power. Otherwise, it will be a very slow process to change.
Okay. Amaka,
but please do something or don't go to sleep. Don't despair.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Someone was asking something. I don't know how you're going to relate to this question. It's saying, can you talk about inbound and outbound in digital marketing?
Inbound, and please, can the person tell me more what you're really trying to find out? Because this is a whole subject. Yeah.
Amaka, please, can you unmute your mic and tell us, because I was trying to find how it ties into this topic. Amaka, please unmute your mic. Okay.
I do understand what she's trying to say, but I want to know exactly what
hello, Ada.
Yes, Amaka.
Good day. It has to do with traditional marketing and digital marketing, you know. I really want to know how the two of them, are they related? Is there any difference? I want to know more about the two of them. I think they have something like 360 degree, as in you have to use two of them in your internet marketing right now. In this digital world that we are talking about, you have to apply both the traditional and the digital strategy. I don't know. I want to really know, yes.
So, not really what we are talking about, but what I can tell you, the only way it relates to this conversation is in terms of the role that digital technology plays. It's a marketing strategy thing, you know. It's about how innovatively you use the money that you have. So when you have a lot of money, but you're not very strategic, you're more likely to engage in outbound marketing. When you have very little money, but you're very strategic, you're more likely to invest in inbound marketing, which involves a lot of digital marketing. So you're kind of you personalize the conversation you're having as you're engaging with consumers. So this is like a whole different, this is marketing, you know, and it's a whole different conversation. And I don't really want to go too deep into that because it's not necessarily what we're talking about. But it's a marketing strategy. You usually use two of them, traditional being TV and all that. But when you inbound is more programmatic, more personalized. So but it's marketing.
Thank you so much.
I hope that helps a little.
Okay, thank you so much, Adora.
Yes, thank you so much.
We've learned so much. I want to open the floor now. Maybe some people don't want to type and they want to just ask the questions.
Okay.
Please,
cool.
can you unmute your mic and then ask your questions? Do we have anyone? Lexin, I can see you. Welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Lex. Yeah. Hi, Julia, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good
Good
evening.
to see you. Chuma, good to see you, bro. Adora, I mean, lovely conversation here, lovely topic, lovely. I mean, you actually opened our minds to a new dimension, you know. The question I really want to ask you is basically, I mean, I hear you and I get you when you mean that we have to be responsible. We have to also, we have a lot of, I mean, we have a larger role as a people to play in terms of how we, systematically change all these things, based on the things we want to do and based on the skill sets that we have and the likes. But the question, I mean, the truth is, and I think you pointed it out, I mean, stating that, Go-Kara example where they stifle all these efforts one way or the other, people try to move in a particular direction based on, what is currently happening globally. And the government always has these, it's more like we are playing, it's more like a chess game. The moment the steps, every step that you take, every 2 steps you take, they want to take you back like another 5 steps. You understand? And in honesty, it is becoming more frustrating. And that's why you have, a larger chunk of people leaving the country to actually go settle in places where they can really make use of their skill sets, where they can basically do a lot of stuff. I'm from the creative industry also. And I can tell you for a fact that we don't value creativity around here. We don't value, ideation. We don't value, the world is moving to a place where ideas actually rule. We don't value that here. It's still based on these processes that we talked about how, machines are beginning to, machines are beginning to automate these processes. I mean, once you can write codes for these processes, it's easy for a machine to basically automate it. Now, I also get you where we have to, we have to be very deliberate about the kind of leaders that we choose. But at least pending till that time actually come, how can one really be in a good state of mind that would actually even get us to that position or get us to that, because the truth is, we might be having this conversation here, and a lot of people within, this group might actually agree with, what you've said. But I can tell you for a fact, a lot of people out there don't agree with these things based on the traditional ways in which they've been doing stuff, the traditional ways in which they think things should be done. And so far they are making money. It is difficult to actually, make them see things in the new light. It is very difficult. I can tell you for a fact, where I actually work, I mean, you're trying to tell them why design is going to play a major role in how businesses, need to start positioning themselves for the future to deliver service and, deliver products and the likes. They don't see it. They just believe that you are just talking, you are just too creative to talk creative things.
Yeah.
The moment they don't see.
Adora, maybe I can add, in addition to what you just said, you and I,
yeah.
You and I had a whole lot. I mean, we had a conversation, and this, if I do recall, this was exactly how we ended up our conversation. No, but it's a fact. I mean, this is coming from someone else now who wasn't even party to what we discussed. And it all throws up the issue of mindset. And it just talked about processes and how people are used to this linear way, linear processes. I mean, it's a practice that has stayed over time, and people are just, it is a major challenge to digitization, and it would remain so until people begin to change these mindsets. I remember asking you how we can begin to change people's mindset.
Paradigms are, yeah.
And maybe you can just, maybe you can show.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say something, first of all, to all of you. And look, I am just like you in terms of I have experienced the frustrations that come with trying to change things. And the truth of the matter is, as long as you are a change agent or you're fighting to change a system that needs to be changed, you're going to experience a lot of personal frustration. So choosing a life of transformation is like setting yourself up for life to be frustrated, because nobody accepts change readily. Human beings are not wired to accept change, especially when the chaos is benefiting someone, as is always the case, right? Now, I personally have chosen a life of transformation. So you can imagine the kind of setup I've put myself in. And I have chosen a life of transformation for a space that is very difficult, which is Nigeria. One thing I can tell you is that personally, I practice a lot of self-care, right? I take care of myself. I make sure that I do certain rituals to make sure that I don't die or sound as frustrated as a lot of people. But having said that, you have to remember certain things. First of all, it is not the 2-point-something million Nigerians that are going, 200-point-something million Nigerians that are going to change. It's not the mass, everybody. There will be people that will be the catalysts of change. So first of all, you as an individual need to realize where you play, what role you play. What do you want to be? Do you want to be a catalyst, or do you want to be waiting to be catalyzed? So, and when you choose to be a catalyst, you have to figure out what it means to you personally and why you're doing it, so you don't get frustrated. If it's whether you're going to meet frustration, you're going to meet a lot of frustration. The person that, Lexane, is that your name, Lexane?
Lexane, yes.
Lexane.
Yes,
When
yes.
you were talking, I could hear a familiar frustration in your voice, which is a frustration I hear all the time, right? However, I'm telling you now that if it's the life that you've chosen, you can't be frustrated. You just need to know that this is the life I've chosen, and every incremental progress is progress. Number 2 tip on being a frustrated change agent is make sure that you have the ability to show and not just tell. And don't wait around for people to do. You have to roll up your sleeves and get things done so people can see a prototype. One of the biggest tools of change is to create prototypes. So when people are telling you it's not going to work, just create a prototype and show them. Did it not work? So scale down, show them in mini prototypes what can be done. That is the fastest way to get buy-in. Do it and show them. Don't wait around. Don't wait to convince and all that. Have the conversations you need to have, but you need to, if you're going to be a change agent, you need to be constantly evolving as a human being. And you cannot think derogatorily about the people that you're trying to change, because it will come out in how you engage with them. You cannot think they are stupid. They're not stupid. They just have a paradigm that needs to be changed. So you cannot be, if you're angry at them, you will be ineffective as a change leader, because at that point, nobody will be listening to you. Everybody has an ego and nobody likes to be called stupid. So fundamentally, these are the 3 tips I can give you. My 4th tip is make sure that you take care of yourself as you're trying to change people. And what I mean by that is take care of yourself financially, take care of yourself, create your own security so that you cannot be compromised. So you won't use because of hunger and do what you know that you're not supposed to be doing. So exactly, Lexan, fund your own life. So those are my 4 tips for being a change agent in a frustrating environment. But if you choose that life, it's a hardcore life. It's not an easy life. Some of us have been in it for 17 years. We have heard where.